All right, there is one last type of buoy. It is just not included within the catalog we were just using from the Coast Pilots because it is really uncommon in America. Essentially not at all used in America. It's called cardinal buoys. You will almost exclusively see these in international waters or in other countries. They're very common in Europe. For whatever reason, the Coast Guard just doesn't like using them. There's no legal restriction on them. They're just not used. Now, what a cardinal buoy is it will direct you to the cardinal direction that you should sail in the, or at the very least that you should err on the side of and keep towards to avoid a certain danger. So let's say, for instance, we had a danger like a rock here, something that you could easily sail into, or a collection of rocks. Let's say there's a bunch of them. Something that causes a major hazard to navigation in this general area. Now, at those rocks, there would probably be a danger marker, an isolated danger buoy right there in the center of them, so that if you got to within that area, you could see, hey, here's a danger buoy. I should not be here. I should leave. If I'm over here, I should turn around and go somewhere that's not here. But obviously that's not helpful to you until you're kind of already like gotten yourself into a bad situation. So the purpose of cardinal buoys is to serve as warnings in a broader area further out here. And they indicate, like I said, they will say like, go north from here, so don't go south. They could say don't go north, don't go east, don't go west. In other words, you'd have a buoy down here, a buoy here, a buoy here, a buoy here, and all of them would be telling you do not go inwards towards this direction. This one would be an eastern cardinal buoy, and it would be labeled east, telling you to go east. Do not go west, because if you go west, you'll hit these rocks. This would be a north one, telling you to go north, or at the very least, keep to the north of this buoy. Do not go to the south of the buoy. A western one saying keep to the west of the buoy, do not go east. And a southern one saying keep to the south of the buoy, do not go north. Now, these get difficult just because obviously it can't just say on it, do not go to the west, go to the east. It has to have some kind of symbology so that you can see it from a distance. So all of these buoys will be horizontally striped, just like the preferred channel buoys. If I draw one here, actually I'll draw one for each. So if we have a buoy here as a representation of each of them, they will all have horizontal striping on them, but each of them will be different so that you can clearly identify what each of them are doing. Additionally, they will each have day boards on them. Those day boards will also be different. I think the day boards are also the most noticeable part about them. So you could recognize the most easily. I think they're the best to memorize first off. So we'll talk about the day boards first. Every single one of these day boards is just two cones, which in two-dimensional space looks like two triangles. A northern preferred channel buoy has two cones in a line pointing upwards, and they are both black. Two black cones pointing up. A southern cardinal buoy has two black cones in a line pointing down. Both of those, I don't need to explain why, that makes perfect sense. An eastern cardinal buoy has two black cones, apex pointed in opposite directions, such as that. And then a western cardinal buoy has two black cones, apexes pointing towards each other. So, in other words, if you see a northern buoy, it will have two cones pointing up, southern, two cones pointing down, pointing apart from one another, pointing towards one another. These two are easy to remember. These are the two people forget a lot. It's kind of hard to memorize that the easterly buoy will have them pointing away from each other, the westerly buoy pointing inwards. The way I do it, the easterly buoy is taught by a friend. Think of like Jewels of the Orient. I was taught by a friend who was taught by somebody else to remember this. Think Jewels of the Orient, jewels. This one looks like a diamond. So if you have some shape that looks like a diamond, jewels, it's an easterly buoy. This one I kind of learned myself, and it's a really weird way to remember it, but I think of Manifest Destiny because during Manifest Destiny, the United States fanned outwards going to the west. So we started like this, and we were spreading outward in the west. So if you have two cardinal markers, two little day shapes here that are spreading outwards, you know that that's a western buoy, cardinal buoy. And if it's a diamond, it's an eastern cardinal buoy. If it points up, north, points down, south. Now, the color of the buoys are always black and yellow. Which part is black and which part is yellow is based on where the apexes of the cones point towards. So the north and south buoys will be split in half, with the half that the cones point towards being black, and the half that the cones don't point towards being yellow. So on a northern cardinal buoy, the cones point up, so the top half is black, the bottom half is yellow. On a southern cardinal buoy, the cones point down, so the bottom half is black, and the top half is yellow. Eastern and western buoys are split into thirds, not in half. And once again, the apexes of the cones point in the direction of where the black paint will be. So on an eastern buoy, the shape looks like a diamond, and the cones point to the tops and the bottoms. So the top third of the buoy is black, and the bottom third of the buoy is black. And then the middle third of the buoy is yellow because the apexes are not pointing to the middle of the buoy. On a western buoy, the apexes of the cones point inward, they point towards each other. So as a result, if they're pointing towards the middle part of the buoy is black, and the top of the buoy and the bottom of the buoy are yellow. So to review visually, if you have a northern buoy, cones point up, top half is black. Southern buoy, cones point down, bottom half is black. Eastern buoy, cones point to the top and the bottom, so the top and the bottom are black. Western buoy, cones point to the middle, so the middle is black. Lastly, there are the light characteristics. Each of these have a different light characteristic. That way you can memorize that better. The light characteristics you can think of similar to a clock. So, on a clock, this would be the 12 o'clock position, this would be the 3 o'clock position, the 6 o'clock position, and the 9 o'clock position. You could also think of it as operating in a total period of 12 beats on this clock system. So It will be a group flashing where, for instance, an eastern buoy at the 3 o'clock position will have 3 beats, 3 flashes, followed by a long rest. Technically 9 beats of rest, but I don't know if it doesn't necessarily have to be 9. All you have to know is it is a group flashing, FL, a group flashing light. It's always white, and it is group flashing 3 because it's 3 flashes, then a pause, and then 3 more flashes, and then a pause. And that will tell you it's the 3 o'clock position on the clock, meaning it's easterly buoy. Next, we'll go to the 9 o'clock position. I'll get to this later. The 9 o'clock position, guess what it does? It has 9 beats and then a pause. So this would be group flashing, still white, 9. So it flashes 9 times, then pauses. Doesn't necessarily need to pause for a shorter period than this one, but it still has that pause after 9 flashes. Now, the northern buoy, you could think as having 12 flashes in a row, but like I said, the total period of these flashes is in 12. So technically it does do 12 flashes, but then there is no break, and it just goes straight back to the beginning because we used up all the time. There is no time for a pause. So this is actually technically a quick flashing white light because it is just 12 flashes and then 12 more flashes and then 12 more flashes with no pause because it's the 12 o'clock position. So it's technically just constantly flashing. Now the 6 o'clock position is a little bit weird, just because I don't know why they did this, but it is not just 6 flashes. It is 6 flashes, short pause, and then a long sustained period, and then a short pause. It might actually be flipped around, but I mean, it starts when it starts. It's still going to be 6 flashes and then a pause, or then a long prolonged flash, or a long prolonged flash, then 6 flashes. For whatever reason, they added that little prolonged flash in there. I guess because there are other buoys that could be mistaken for having 6 flashes. So this clearly denotes it as being different from the rest, just so you don't get caught up, I suppose, having to count, was it really 6 flashes or 9 flashes? Because these flashes are very faint. It's kind of hard to see. So going around the circle, a northern buoy will be quick flashing because it's doing constant sets of 12 flashes with no pause in between. A eastern buoy will be group flashing 3 because it has 3 flashes and then a pause. A southern buoy will technically be composite group flashing. I don't remember if that's the correct notation. 6 plus 1 because it's 6 flashes plus a long sustained period. Verify that that's correct. That might not be exactly written properly, but this is the general principle of the southern buoy. And then a western buoy is group flashing 9 because it's in the 9 o'clock position. So it does 9 flashes and then a pause. So to recap, you have a hazard in the center of this area, marked with a danger buoy. The top of the danger buoy is black. On the outsides of the area, there will be cardinal buoys. North of the hazard will be a northern cardinal buoy with 2 cones pointing up. The top half of the buoy is black, the bottom half is yellow, and it is quick flashing white light. To the east of the hazard will be an eastern cardinal buoy. It will have cones pointing in opposite directions to make a diamond shape because it's the jewels of the Orient. The buoy will be black on top, black on the bottom, yellow in the middle, and it will be a group flashing 3 white light. So it'll be 3 flashes, then a pause. To the south of the hazard will be a southern cardinal buoy. it will have two cones pointing downward. The bottom half of the buoy will be black, the top half will be yellow, and it will be a composite group flashing light alternating between 6 flashes and a long a prolonged flash after that. Then to the west of the buoy the west of the hazard, there will be a western cardinal buoy with the cones pointing inwards towards each other. So the center of the buoy is black and the outsides are yellow, which you can remember from Manifest Destiny. It fans out from the center and it fans out in the west. And it will be group flashing 9 beats and then a pause because it's in the 9 o'clock position. And what all of this means is if you are a ship coming in from here and you first see an easterly buoy or an eastern cardinal buoy, it means do not go any further to the west. Even if you've been heading west, this is a danger right here. So you do not want to go to the west. You want to go to the east. Let's say you looked and you saw to the north, there was a northern cardinal buoy, and it's right here. And it's saying go to the north, do not go south. Stay anywhere north of this buoy and stay anywhere east of this buoy. Technically, what you could do then is you could aim northwest like this, and you could just stay east of the buoy until you're north of this buoy and just avoid the area altogether. Basically, just turn away from the buoy in whatever direction it is telling you to go generally, and you should avoid the danger area. Now, it's important to note, you don't always need to have 4, and they don't always need to be all 4. If, for instance, there wasn't a buoy here because there was just land, let's say this was a beach right here, there would be no need for a western buoy because the land is right there. So there would be no western buoy, but there would still be these 3 around it. They could also, if it was a really large area, double up and put 2 southern buoys, 2 eastern buoys, whatever it needs to be. There could just be a single one of these buoys. It doesn't always need to be in a set of 4, but anytime you see one of these, it's directing you in a direction because the opposite direction is a danger. I'm sorry that was long. These are complicated. It is really hard to remember all of the rules for these, but these are important because you will be asked a lot of questions, even if they're not common in the United States.